I don't know if you guys can hear it, but there is so much thunder in the distance. And the sky has been getting darker and darker. The thunder has been rumbling closer and closer for like 20 minutes now, and I feel like we are getting ready for quite a big storm. And here, with my beautiful forest, it is going to be very beautiful. And the rain is here, and it's beautiful. I'm probably gonna go open up a window and sit and journal for a little bit, just to kind of take in this organic moment of the rain coming down and all of the beautiful green summer leaves, echoing the sound of it in the ravine behind our house. But I wanted to take just a few minutes to talk a little bit about the really amazing conversations that we have been having in the last video about social media expectations and creators. And it is such a huge subject, and you guys have so many amazing perspectives on it that I have not been able to really wrap up into one smooth conversation. So I've read everything you guys have posted. I have gotten messages on the Instagram DMs. I've gotten messages in my Discord, in my email, all talking about this relationship that creators and the people who participate in the creations have, and what kind of things you should possibly feel okay to expect when you participate in somebody's social media creation. It's been so diverse. It has been so amazing. You guys have definitely brought up subjects that I didn't really think about, and perspectives that really shifted everything for me and have made it so I feel kind of tongue-tied. I want so badly to talk about this more, but there are so many different perspectives you could take on explaining a social media space. Like, why does that space exist? Who creates it? Is it for a business? Is it for personal things? Is it that murky world that we increasingly have with social media where it's kind of both? What happens when you make it both? What kind of authenticity can you expect? Should you expect authenticity? When is it a persona versus like that honest, authentic feel? When is it too honest? It's all over the place, basically. And you guys had some amazing perspectives. I highly recommend reading through everybody's comments if you're curious about those things, especially if you're a fellow creator, and just maybe keep an open mind about that subject, because I think talking about the organic relationship between creators and participants, which is what I kind of prefer to call the people who participate through any means in another person's creation online now. If you are gonna have the world continue to go where it's going, and where so much of our mental landscape ends up reflected through social media groups online, I feel like it's really important just to keep all of these things in mind, especially if you're like me and this is now my job. Like, I do YouTube full time, not in the vlog side of things where I ramble about things from inside of my head, but on the Seri biologist channel, that's my job now. That's what I do every day, almost all day long. And that is what I am kind of pinning some of my future on for now. So it's important to think about those things, because I often feel really curious about what is my responsibility for both of these things. For my vlog channel, I feel super casual. I feel like I can just flop about and be myself, and I can talk about really silly rambles. I can show you guys cool vegan food. I can show you beautiful days where the rain is coming down here in Michigan, take you on trips with me. And on the Seri Biologist channel, for a long time, I felt very overwhelmed and crushed by the expectations I felt other people had for me. I felt, ooh, we're getting some brownouts. So it might get really dark all of a sudden. And I mean, any of you guys who have been following for a long time will know I have had a series of terrible burnouts over the last few years that have been really kind of some of the most creatively and energy devastating things that I've had to deal with. There's been a lot worse things in my personal life in the past, But until you really go through the kind of steam-rolling experience of being burned out and staring at hundreds and hundreds of comments and looking at potentially hundreds of thousands of people and feeling like you can't live up to their expectations, you don't really know what it's going to be like. And that is one of the experiences that makes me constantly analyze what is the relationship between creators and participants. Why do we have the expectations we do of each other? And after reading through all of your guys' comments, like I said, there's way too many angles to be able to touch everything. And I think that they're all right. I think, like I mentioned last time, that people who want to go all brand in their social media space, that's awesome. If that's what they want to do, that's great. And people who want to maybe mix the personal and the professional, that's great too. People who want to share their art, they want to live tweet like what they think of the latest show, they want to share pictures of their food, their cat, their dog, that's cool too. And I think it boils down to, after reading through all of your comments and thinking about it for a long time, the only place I felt like I was starting to gain traction thinking about this was that I think the most important thing that can define the expectations that a creator and the participants in the creation, so we'll just call them community members now, but the most important thing that a creator and the community can begin to find a middle ground where they can have expectations of each other is probably the reasons the creator creates. And those reasons might evolve over time. They might change as circumstances change in the creator's life. And I think that the reason the creator creates is going to set the tone for everything. A lot of you guys who replied talked about creating yourselves and how you worry about posting things in some of your social media spaces because what if somebody doesn't like it? Some of you replied talking about how that makes you feel so pressured when you're just participating in a community, because then you're a little mini creator yourself. If you're leaving comments on someone's things and people start noticing you, and then you start talking in the comments regularly on all the new things, you do become a little mini creator of a conversation yourself, and then you start feeling the expectation of, like, every time someone posts and you're normally there commenting on it, you build up a little following. So that too is a great example of kind of like participating in the community and starting to feel the pressures of expectations. And a lot of you who did post, who are creators, describe the same feeling that I have felt in the past of anxiety and uncertainty over where to go. Because sometimes, and I know I did this for the vast majority of everything I've made on YouTube, but sometimes when you create, you start working from a place of what people expect from you and not from a place of what you want, why you're creating. Those things get murky really fast because we're human. Those things get murky really fast because the circumstances around you shift. When I first started creating things for the Seri Pixel Biology channel, back when it was Seri Sims, I wanted to share Sim stories faster, and it took me forever to type them up and share them on Tumblr, so it was just easier to record it, and I had fun. And when I shared my first Minecraft stuff, when I shared my zoo crafting stuff, I wanted to share animal facts because I missed being a teacher and I missed teaching people about animals. It was a year after I was creating all of these videos before I even knew you could put like AdSense on your videos. A whole year into my YouTube journey before I actually knew what a YouTuber was. It was an entire year before I knew that there were other Let's Plays out there other than 2 people I followed for Sims 2 Let's Plays. Yeah. So when I first started creating, it was from a place of making Sim stories for myself, and I would get a few comments, but it was almost like a surprise, and almost a little like, oh, that's interesting, somebody commented, that's cool, but it didn't really have much of an impact. And then after I figured out like, oh, I can turn on this button and something will happen, and I made my first 8 cents 1 month on my videos, and I was desperately looking for more ways to earn money because I was losing my job as a nanny, and I didn't have any other career lined up, and I was looking actively for work, but I was like, well, I have all this free time waiting for a new job. I'm just gonna throw myself into this and see what happens. And what happened is I ended up becoming Seri the Pixel Biologist, and now I've done that for almost 5 years, and I plan on doing it for many more, hopefully. And so the reason that I created shifted, and for a little while there it was in an attempt for income because I was trying to set up my life so that I could create stuff and then people would like it enough to watch it, and then I could pay my bills and have groceries paid for, which was a very novel idea. So the reason that I created shifted from just kind of to share some stories and animal facts to trying to sustain an income. And for 2 years, that didn't quite carry all the way through. For 2 years, that was a little bit like, and so I had to supplement it by creating stuff in the Etsy store and doing like the little donation runs so I could afford groceries that month. And then things started to grow enough that it became safe enough to consider my job. And once that happened, it was kind of interesting because once the stability and security was there, the reason I created it shifted to wanting to make people happy. I had some stability in life, and I wanted to do something that made my heart happy every day. And by that point of doing it for a couple years, I was used to the messages that people would send about how the relaxing adventures in zoo crafting really changed their life. I was used to seeing people say how their parents were fighting, but being able to relax with the video helped them to calm down, or they were just really anxious and starting college, and thank you so much for the videos. And so I would look at all of the comments, and I felt so responsible to all of the people in the community, and I wanted to make all those people happy. And so the reason that I created shifted to trying to make all of these people happy. And the community kept growing, and I kept trying to make even more people happy. And I think this is kind of where it ties back into the creator and the expectations thing I was talking about earlier. For about a year and a half there, I worked from 7 to 8 in the morning until 2 or 3 in the morning. Almost every day, except when I was too sick to work. And I tried so hard to create enough stuff to make people happy, and that's where the expectations of my community shifted. And that's where I think the danger is in kind of like the social media thing, is when you lose control of why you're in that space, when you don't have a clear idea of why you have the social media space, why you're here, why you're creating, why you are sharing, and you start trying to live up to the expectations you feel other people have on you, that's where the danger sets in. That's where the weak links in your chain set in, and you can end up in a very bad place. And so people expected that I should make them happy, and every time someone would comment angrily because I hadn't uploaded like daily episodes of Star Stable, or I hadn't uploaded Wolf Quest for a long time, or they would be angry and upset, that began to be all I could see. I felt like such a letdown, such a failure. It was like no matter how hard I worked, I would check my comments and there would be one person who was very upset because they wanted a series that hadn't been back for like 2 years. And so I would panic and I would put that series on my schedule and I would try so hard to do it, and there just wasn't enough of me to go around. And I had that crushing burnout last November. And if you guys have never felt burnout before, because it sounds so easy. I mean, I've been through serious depression, I've been through serious anxiety, really bad situations in my life, and so I remember thinking like, burnout doesn't sound that big a deal. Burnout doesn't sound code red, mission critical. And now I kind of know better. Burnout is basically like depression, but you've been steamrolled flat and you are facing the overwhelming task of all of these expectations you can't meet, both within yourself and externally, in the form of a couple 100,000 people that you feel like you're letting down on a daily basis because 2 people said something bad. That was my experience with burnout, and it's a different subject entirely that I'll talk about later. But I know I burned out because I let the link between the expectations my community had and the expectations that I had for that space be in an unhealthy place. So this isn't quite going where I thought it was, because I really want to talk about a lot of the great points you guys brought up. Like, for instance, I mentioned how maybe I want to post lots and lots of different types of things on my vlog channel. And a lot of you guys were amazingly supportive and sweet, and I really highly appreciate all of you who reassured me that I can do whatever I want and I should do whatever I want. And I want to reassure you guys, I wasn't panicking too much. I was just kind of reflecting on how inwardly I had that like hesitation. But yeah, I wasn't so much worried about me as I'm worried about all the other people who might be sculpting what they think is of value within themselves to share, based on being in a place where they are putting the expectations others have of them before the reason that they're in that space at all. If they're in that space at all just to have kind of a media hangout, like a social media hangout where they can just be themselves, then they shouldn't have to feel like you have to curate your interest just to appease these people who are participating in your space. They chose to be there. And yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more later, because this is kind of getting way too long and I'm having such a hard time wrapping this ramble up. This is such a huge subject. I'm really struggling with this, but I wanted to kind of point out, I thought about it a lot over the last few days, and I thought about your responses a lot the last few days. And I think this all comes from a place of trying to figure out, why do I do what I do now? Why do I do what I do now? What does it mean to have a social media space? What does it mean to create and curate for that space? What responsibilities do I have to this space? And the answer for me, and this is one of thousands of possible correct answers, is that I think that as long as my reasons for creating and curating that space come first, then whatever I choose to do is valid. And if there are people who disagree with that, or they're upset, or they feel like they got gypped, then that's not on me. But I do think it's fair for people to have an idea of what they're getting into when they enter a space. And I didn't realize how important that was to me until this week, thinking about all of your guys' comments. And now that I think about it, even though I do not feel like people should be hemmed in, I don't feel like you should be blockaded. Like you put something like cat lover in your Twitter bio and you post a picture of, I don't know, a pangolin, and people, they should not be allowed to freak out about that. But I think it's fair, like if you have a phobia of cats and you look at somebody's bio and see it says cat lover, then maybe it's fair that you have that expectation. But that's a totally different subject too. Gosh, this is so much harder than I thought it would be to summarize in my head, because you guys had such great ideas. But in the end, if I create for the reasons that I feel I'm in the space for, then whatever I end up doing, I think is valid. And the reason I'm in this vlog space is because I want to share just life. I want to share happy moments. I want to share growth, especially with you guys. And that's because I would love to see more of that too. I would love to see the vlogs of people just kind of talking about what's in their heads, the way that they grow, of people who try to take another step forward and another step forward, and who explore the world, but not just in the style of like travel vloggers where it's beautiful montages and perfect music choices, but who explore the world through their own unique perspective. And sometimes that might be really exciting days, sometimes it might be more laid back days. And that's what I want for this vlog space. And I think that as long as I can put that reason for being in the social media room, like that I have created, forward, then I can keep going without getting tripped up by the participants who come in and they're like, but I only want to see like bird videos. What are you doing, Seri? It won't trip me up because I won't feel like I let somebody down anymore. I won't feel like I misused somebody's expectations because I know what those expectations should fairly be. Just like if I have my pixel biology channel, some of you guys really commented that like, oh, I should do whatever I want, including RimWorld or maybe more violent games on my pixel biology channel. It's my channel, I can do what I want. But a lot of you guys pointed out that sometimes it's really helpful to you when you're following people in their spaces to know a general idea of what you can get, because you take part of those spaces to try to take care of yourself in some way. And it's not fair to put the onus of taking care of yourself on a creator, but I can see how pulling from their content helps you to kind of fill something for yourself. So if you're trying to have, say, like a really you've had a hard day, you come home from work, you just want to listen to somebody be cheerful and happy, it would be very jarring to go to who is normally a cheerful and happy place and now they're doing really angry, like, I hate such and such reviews of something. That would be very jarring, and I would be a little bit like understanding if then you feel like your expectations sort of got tangled. So for my pixel biology channel, because I have curated it for so long as kind of like a family-friendly space, I understand how it would be very jarring and possibly like not really appropriate to put more violent things into. So that would probably be on the third channel. And that again comes from less trying to live up to other people's expectations and more thinking about, what do I want to do with that space? And I want people to feel happy. I want people to feel curious about the natural world. I want people to feel engaged with their creative side on my pixel biology channel space. And it helped a lot to have those definitions, because until this week in all of these conversations, I didn't really have those definitions. And that's kind of why I make so many things. I didn't really have those definitions of what I wanted, and I was still kind of floating along the edges of like, what do people expect of me as Seri, expect of me as Sage on my Instagram, or all of that. So for creators, it's definitely a healthier place that I would highly advocate that any social media space you go into, you give yourself a sense of like, why am I here? And if the answer is to become the most popular person on Twitter, that's a bad answer. You're gonna set yourself up for so much stress. Please think about why you enjoy creating, or what makes you feel motivated to create, and like center on that. Don't center on the numbers. That's also some of my advice. So this has gone on way too long. I probably repeated myself way too much. This is just such a hard conversation, but there's step one in what I feel like I have reached a place of so much peace that is, believe it or not, really essential for me to keep going as a creator. I now know how to define the spaces I am in and what I want out of them. Not because I'm curating myself to other people's expectations, but because I'm trying to set the tone for what those expectations could fairly be that other people have of my space. And at first, I thought we should all just respect a creator could do whatever they wanted with their space, but many of your guys' comments pointed out that it's nice to have just a little bit of an idea of what you're getting into when you go to participate somewhere. And I think that's fair too. Because as Chips pointed out, he is actually a philosopher. For those of you guys who don't know, he is a philosopher, not like armchair philosopher, like has degrees, has papers, has written books philosopher. So when we go on walks, it's fun to chat with him because he has such a unique view and he loves to play devil's advocate, and we have really good conversations. The bottom line to his mind is that if you didn't want to share something and own up to the responsibilities of sharing it and the fact that people will have expectations of you if you share something, then you shouldn't share it at all. which is valid, which is very valid too. Not that you shouldn't share things with people, or that you should fear the repercussions of sharing just something as innocent as pictures of flowers or your interest, as long as they're healthy and don't hurt anyone. But it was a fair point that, yeah, if I really didn't want to own up to the responsibility of at least setting the tone for the expectations people can have of my space, I probably shouldn't be sharing it at all. And that was a little bit of a hard pill to swallow for some reason, but it was a very valid point that I'm going to use moving forward in all of this. I've gone on too long. I'm going to stop. There's so many conversations and so many angles of these subjects, but I hope that as time goes on, I will be able to create from a place of confidence, and I will be able to become the kind of person who can set a tone for these spaces so that you guys will know what to expect. Not because I want to be the best at something, but because it will give us all a happier, healthier place to be. So creators, this was kind of mostly for you. For people who participate in communities, maybe it gave you some more food for thought. It was definitely way too much of a ramble. You guys gave me too much to think about, and I didn't even get into so many of the interesting subjects that were brought up, like the fact that sometimes some of the anger people have when a creator fails to live up to their expectations or breaks outside of their mold is similar to the anger that we have as children. Sometimes, I definitely had this, when you realize your teacher is a full human being with flaws. That was very hard for me to wrap my head around because I was so rule-oriented, and I thought my teachers were like the most perfect people in the universe, and finding out that one of them like enjoyed going out to drink after hours, I was, for my little 7-year-old brain, I was blown out of the water, and I didn't know what trust was for a while. So that was an interesting point someone brought up in the comments, and there's a lot more to it, and I'm gonna stop here because that lot more is gonna have to wait. But the little random thought I had in the morning ended up spurring some conversations that I actually feel have finally, after years of doing this and many cycles with burnout in the last couple years, and wanting to figure out how to take better mental health care of myself, and also make sure to set the community up so people know what to expect from our communities. I think I finally got the answers from thinking about all of this. So I hope some of it helped you. Probably this was just a silly ramble, but I'm really glad this is my blog space where rambling's allowed. So thank you guys so much. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart. I don't think I would have been able to put together the words for some of the things I was thinking about. I don't think I would have had the confidence to just kind of put my feet down and stop looking outward at the expectations people had, and instead looking inward at the expectations I have and the reasons I have for creating in each of the different spaces that I watch over. For me, it's joy, it's happiness, it's storytelling, it's encouraging curiosity, and sometimes it's just sharing the messy process of growing and being sage, and kind of being a little bit lost and adrift at sea at times, and yelling out and seeing who yells back. And thank you guys so much for that. So I will see you next time. Bye guys.